Now, yesterday, as we know, the government announced that the inquiry into the Irish Bank Resolution Corporation is to be upgraded to a commission of investigation headed up by a High Court judge. With me in studio, the independent TD for Wicklow and East Carlow, Stephen Donnelly, and Tom Lyons, business editor of the Sunday Business Post. But let's briefly recall what Michael Noonan, the Finance Minister, told Brian Dobson on the 6-1 News and RT1 television last evening about the reasons for the government's decision.
Well, initially we asked the liquidators who were in place and who had access to all documents to carry out a review, and we committed that if something untoward was found, we would report to the relevant committee of the Dáil and that they would continue then commissioning an investigation if an investigation was justified. What has changed my mind on the process is that since then new allegations have been made. There's no evidence underpinning any allegations, but the allegations are now causing public concern. And the review, in my view, is insufficient to deal with the new allegations. So I recommended to government that we would have a full commission of investigation.
And that's Michael Noonan on last evening, 6-1. Stephen Donnelly, as your constituency colleague and Minister of State at the Department of Finance, Simon Harris, eloquently put it on Morning Ireland, admittedly borrowing a phrase earlier on, when the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do? This is something which is consistent, really, with a change of context.
Well, the facts haven't changed, Sean. The facts are the facts. When the facts emerge, the government changes its mind. Let's be very clear. This information, as far as I was concerned, was withheld from the Dáil, or at least I'll say that I believe, as a member of Dáil Éireann, the information pertinent to all of this was not shared with me when it should have been shared. It should have been shared with the Finance Committee when the Department of Finance first raised these very serious concerns. It should have been shared in the context of the liquidation of IBRC. Not only was it not shared, but Minister Noonan expressed his gratitude and thanks for the board when we now know, and we now have very clear evidence, thanks to the work of Catherine Murphy, that the relationship was very fractious and there were very serious concerns. Just finally, and it should have been shared when Catherine Murphy, as a member of Dáil Éireann, submitted the PQs to Minister Noonan. The facts haven't changed. The government has changed its position because Catherine Murphy has managed to get the facts into the public domain.
To Michael Noonan, what is new is that new allegations have been made. They were made on the record, or in the Dáil, underprivileged by Catherine Murphy, about interest rates and loans and so forth. That is new, and that is primarily what has heightened public concern. And that wasn't there when they set up the original inquiry.
I don't believe that is what's heightened public concern. As I said to you on the show, I think 2 days ago, this was never about Denis O'Brien. No one attacked his character and no one suggested he did anything wrong. This was about the Department of Finance raising deadly serious concerns about what was going on in IBRC, about Michael Noonan as Minister for Finance not sharing those in direct response to questions from the Dáil, and then appointing KPMG to investigate transactions which KPMG were involved in. The entire position here, and it's one that Minister Noonan has not accepted, is that there was a conflict of interest. KPMG were appointed to investigate transactions KPMG were involved in,
Michael Noonan has accepted that to the extent that he that's why he brought in Iarla O'Neill. Now I know we moved on from that, the retired High Court judge, to oversee any potential conflicts of interest where the particular concern you've identified came into play, where they might have been looking at matters that, if you like, they were on both sides of a particular issue because they were advising, for instance, separately on the sale of the site, sort of thing. Yeah. And that's why Michael Noonan brought in Iarla O'Neill.
Sure, and what Minister Noonan is now saying is, well, look, allegations have been made and now the public are concerned, so we better have a commission of investigation. That is simply not the case. Evidence emerged. The opposition and many people in the public wanted an investigation. When the government said we'll get KPMG to do it, the opposition and many people in the media and many members of the public said that is not acceptable. So this demand for a commission of inquiry has not popped up thanks to the latest evidence that Catherine Murphy has uncovered. The demand for a commission of inquiry and the demand for a non-conflicted investigation has been there from day one.
Let's call it allegations that Catherine Murphy has made as opposed to evidence that she has uncovered.
Well, she has.
But that's hotly disputed, the accuracy of what she's saying.
Sorry, yes, to be clear, I'm not talking about the interest rates. Okay. I'm talking about the FOI information that has come out in the response to her questions.
Tom Lyons, what is this new commission of inquiry going to do? Where is it going to be able to shine a light that wasn't going to be shone prior to this?
Well, they've said a number of things. They said that they're going to look at 40 transactions where over 10 million euros were lost. They say that they're going to look at interest rate deals with large borrowers and were they unduly favourable. They've also said that they're going to look at share transactions in relation to any company. So they now are looking at a hell of a lot of things. And I think there would have to be a concern that we're going to look at so many things. We're going to look at them all in a shallow fashion if we're to be finished by December. And you'd have to be concerned, how deep are they going to dig? If they're going to look at, there's 40 transactions there, plus the interest rate ones. We don't know how many is in there. That could be 10, 20, we don't know. Plus the share transaction, that's probably one. Maybe there's more than that, but there wouldn't be many. And it is really looking at, Enda Kenny said back in April that this is going to, the reason he wasn't doing a commission of investigation was going to take quite a long time. I think this is certainly going to take quite a long time. But is there any other way of getting a sufficient depth to the investigation, or do you think the previous one would have been adequate? I think that, at all points, Minister Noonan has said that this is something that, he has received no evidence for, but he is concerned about the optics and he's concerned about this perception in the public that something has gone wrong. On that very point, Tom, let's recall something else from what he was saying to Brian Dobson last evening, particularly in the context of the Dáil questions and then the information that was brought forward.
I gave proper answers to Dáil questions. I proceeded properly on all occasions, but now there is a public disquiet which is mounting, and it's appropriate that it should be put in the hands of a judge under the 2004 Act so that there's a full commission of inquiry. And let the chips fall where they will, but there's no evidence of any wrongdoing on anybody's part yet.
And that's the point he's making. Let the chips fall where they will, Tom. Absolutely, but I think he should acknowledge that the reason there is so much public disquiet is to do with his handling of the whole affair. It's been absolutely cack-handed and marked by U-turns and marked by this disregard to the FOI process and to answering questions in a straightforward manner. It's been really dragging everything out. Well, he has been very emphatic, not least in the studio several weeks ago, that he behaved properly at all times. He answers the questions he was asked in the Dáil. Then there's a different process using FOI where you get fuller information. That is, whether you agree or not, that is his position, and he has stuck rigidly to it. Yeah, let's go back to 2012 when these concerns were being raised. Why is it takes until 2015 for him to address them? This is the guy who's acted properly at all points. I really think that in 2012, if these concerns were being raised, they should have been taken on there and then. Everything should be gotten to the bottom of, rather than it's all coming up now. And there's a lot of allegations being made against people, and some of it, there may not be the evidence to support it.
Sean, can we just go back to the parliamentary questions? I believe the Minister has taken a very disingenuous position in saying he answered Catherine Murphy's questions fully. It's all on the Oireachtas website, and I encourage anybody listening, if they have any doubt or question as to whether or not the questions were answered properly, go and take a look. Catherine Murphy first submitted a question in November of last year. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but basically the question said, do you as Minister of Finance have any concerns about the SiteServe deal? That's more or less what she asked. And his reply more or less said, the SiteServe deal has nothing to do with me. I have an arm's length relationship with IBRC, but the IBRC board assures me that they have no problem with it. When he said that, he had already had a report from his officials stating that they had deep concerns about the SiteServe deal. They named 4 concerns about the SiteServe deal, and he had his officials go in and investigate it. He didn't mention any of that in the following 6 parliamentary questions, and I'll just finish on this, Sean. Then Catherine Murphy submitted FOI, and when there was no way of stopping, when basically he had to, under law, provide the information under FOI, astoundingly, the next parliamentary question referenced the concerns.
Yes, but Michael Noonan did have conversations with people like Alan Dukes about that matter, and he was given assurances that it had been dealt with correctly by the board. And again, sure. And despite the sequence of events, and you can see, yes, there was far more information that emerged through the FOI process, there is still no evidence of any wrongdoing.
I hope there is no wrongdoing.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of evidence of two, if you like, prize fighters at war.
Yeah.
John Moore in the Department of Finance General Secretary, and Alan Dukes, the chair of IBRC, and Dukes asserting, as he saw it, the independence of the bank to do its business, its officials and its directors, and not to be dictated to by Moore and co at the Department of Finance. They in turn had different concerns, the interest of the taxpayer, and there was massive tension. But massive tension doesn't amount to wrongdoing.
There may be no wrongdoing, and I hope there is no wrongdoing. Let's just go back. This all started with the Department of Finance officials reporting to Michael Noonan as Minister for Finance that they had very serious concerns about, quote, several large transactions. They then spoke specifically about the SiteServe deal and listed several concerns that they had, right? So that is not evidence of wrongdoing, it's evidence of concern, not raised by the opposition or Catherine Murphy,
but similar
raised by
concerns
department
and reports
officials.
of concerns go in routinely every day, I suspect, in all manner of government departments, be it, officials in the Department of Education having concerns about the way, particular institutions are run or whatever. But that does not have to get onto the floor of Dáil Éireann.
Hang on. The IBRC management team were selling off about €80 billion of public assets. And the Department of Finance officials said to the Minister, we have serious concerns about these sales. That most definitely should be on the floor of the Dáil.
Tom?
Well, I think that, there's undoubtedly we should be investigating these serious concerns about IBRC, but we should also be looking at, some of the other allegations. I mean, Alan Dukes accuses the Department of Finance in October 2011 of fiddling while Rome burns. And there certainly seems to be another side of the story, which is what was the Department of Finance doing and how well was it handling this difficult relationship. And I think that should be included as part of the Commission of Investigation, which is to look at, was this down to, were there mistakes made by IBRC, or were the things to do with incompetence or inability within the Department of Finance?
Now, the terms of reference for the new Commission of Inquiry, headed by still unidentified, at least not publicly identified as of yet, judge, it is going to give or include examination of any deals with borrowers on their interest rates seen to be given on preferential terms that were unduly favourable to the borrower. That's one thing, but you've got to set that side by side, haven't you, with the ruling in the High Court yesterday about bank confidentiality that clients have.
Yeah, you do, and there's definitely a question as to how much of the information needs to be in the public domain. I would see no reason why the interest rates and loan facility arrangements for business accounts with IBRC should be in the public domain, unless there is a very, very clear public interest that trumps that.
Using this power to investigate particular deals, I would imagine that, and this is indicated, I think, in the judgment yesterday, that if wrongdoing or inappropriate behaviour is identified, well, the public interest would dictate that should be made public, that would trump the confidentiality.
Yes, absolutely. So let's take as an example, let's say a business has a loan facility with IBRC for 100 million. And the Commission of Inquiry comes back and says, look, at a normal business rate, it should have been 7%. And actually, IBRC was rolling it over at 2%. So in our opinion, they were getting a 5% reduction in a normal business rate. That's essentially a subsidy from the state. That would be worth €5 million a year. I mean, I hope, by the way, that isn't the case. But that sort of thing absolutely would be public interest. And then, if that is the case, obviously the Commission and then the Oireachtas needs to say, well, why? If these preferential interest rates exist, and I hope they don't, why do they exist? And who's granting them and why are they being granted? And why did the Minister not know about this? Or if he did know about it, what did he do about it?
The thing I'd say on the interest rates is best of luck defining what is unduly favourable. This was a major, major financial crisis. If big businesses were able to pay interest rates at all, that was better than most. A lot of companies were really, really struggling. And they were doing their best to keep their employees with pay slips every Friday or once a month or whatever it might be. And I think that phrase, unduly favourable, it's going to be almost impossible to determine. And what is seen as unduly favourable today versus in the thick of the financial crisis are two very different things.
So in other words, even to get the principal back, you were doing well in many instances.
Absolutely.
let alone get an interest repayment on it.
To be getting an interest rate repayment during the crisis, and we're not talking about IBRC here, we're talking about all the banks, you were doing very well in many cases.
Yeah, Tom makes a very fair point. Is it possible to take a look at it? Sure, it is. If I were conducting it, if I was conducting this financial piece of it, I'd be looking at the size of the loans, I'd be looking at the risk profiles of the loans, and I'd be looking at the kind of interest rates that other lenders in the country were giving. And by the way, I'm not for a second do I think this necessarily is the case. I hope it's not. But if that was the case, you'd say, well, look, it would appear that you are getting loans on similar loan profiles for a lot less. And let's not forget, it's public money. It was public money pouring into IBRC.
Well, might there be scope for peering into whether the proper procedures were applied in setting whatever interest rates were settled on?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something that they can look at, and I would suspect that you will see all the proper procedures in place. This was a bank where there was a whole bunch and series of structures which were adhered to. We found very little, when it comes to interest rates. Are we going to find a whole bunch of things where they were cutting off and not doing it? I doubt it.
Stephen, on the politics of this, even though the government was initially very resistant to doing what they have now decided to do, in actual fact, politically, it's a very neat solution potentially. Certainly if it mirrors what happened, say, with the Fennelly Commission into the departure of the former Garda Commissioner, it shuts down debate. It shuts down any need to reply in Dáil Éireann to questions that are raised about anything that falls within the remit of this Commission of Inquiry. And it may well take them, not just to the end of this year as is set out in the terms of reference, it may take them well into next year. And who knows how far beyond that.
Yeah, certainly an observer of politics for many years commented to me this morning. He said, Fine Gael have clearly learnt a lot by sitting in opposition to Fianna Fáil for so many years. The Minister will be before the Finance Committee in the next few weeks. We will be questioning him on the political governance of this. On the specifics, were there people who were conflicted? Were there people involved in transacting IBRC deals or advising on IBRC deals who had an interest in those deals? Those kind of questions will be asked, and it is right and proper that the Commission of Investigation will get on and do that. Very serious work. In parallel to that, we, the Oireachtas, can most definitely look at the political governance. There's a lot of questions that the Finance Committee has for Michael Noonan. Why did you keep this information? Can you imagine if the Minister
Well,
had...
we know from two lengthy interviews he gave last night on the 6-1 and earlier on this programme, we know his position. He answered the questions he was asked. When the FOI requests came in, he shoveled out the information. That's what happened. That's the way the system works.
Well, that's the way he's working in the system. But there's other questions. So, for example, does the Minister have similar reports on NAMA? We don't know. Does he have similar reports on AIB? We don't know. Now that we know, he will hold these reports, whereas officials say, actually, we've got very serious concerns about large transactions here involving public money. Well, what else has he decided it's legitimate for him not to share with the Oireachtas?
Realistically, though, Tom, the Minister, if, for the sake of argument, Catherine Murphy gets up next week with further, drawing on further information that she has been supplied and puts it on the record of the House, the Minister is perfectly entitled to say, look, that's a matter that really now should be explored by this new Commission of Inquiry.
I know, and that's the extraordinary thing about this whole thing is if she does put this information up, it's very, and she's to be commended for bringing all of this information out, but it's very difficult to defend or respond to it. The Minister will just have to...
And again, Michael Noonan, on day one, he said, yes, she has the right to do that and she should be allowed to make those statements. If she's bringing forward information that's of public concern, let her do it.
Absolutely, but if he starts kicking it off and saying, I can't respond because of the Commission of Investigation, I mean, it's going to get ludicrous that there will be no debate. She'll be raising concerns on the one hand, legitimate concerns, and then on the other, he'll be saying, well, I can't report on that until December or whenever the inquiry comes back.
Well, that's what we see. That's what we've seen happening with the Fennelly Commission, Stephen Donnelly, in regard to one specific, admittedly one very narrow specific element of policing. Yeah,
I imagine, talking to Catherine regularly on this, I imagine Catherine will be bringing forward more information. I know that she'll be looking at the Freedom of Information request that just came out on the minutes of the board meetings that the department found behind a cabinet or something. So I'm sure she will, and I've no doubt the Finance Committee will be talking to Minister Noonan. He's coming in the next few weeks. And it is right and proper that the Commission will take time to look at this. These are very, very serious issues. These involve vast amounts of public money, and I'm more than happy for a Commission now to go and do serious and detailed work.
Stephen Donnelly, TD for Wicklow and East Carlow, Tom Lyons, business editor of the Sunday Business Post. Thank you both for being with us.
Today with Sean O'Rourke.